After this weekend's UFC 298 live event, Brendan Schaub went back to hating on the UFC. So let's go ahead and take a look at this rant.
This is where the UFC fucked up. And you can see it with the placement of certain fights on UFC 300. UFC fucked up. They're too big, they're too fancy now. They're not paying attention to details. And UFC 300 would show you this. They stacked 298. They stacked 299. And 300, which they should have been planned for a year ago, was a byproduct. And they're scrambling. They're scrambling to get things done. It showed Max Holloway, Justin Gaethje makes no fucking sense. Nobody's asking for it. Everyone loves Max Holloway. He's probably going to get destroyed. We don't want to see it. What's it do for the division? It moves nobody forward. Everyone stays lukewarm on it. Max Holloway, by all means, should be the guy fighting Topuria next. That's a huge fucking feather in Topuria's cap. Okay, Max goes out there and gets so much brain damage from Justin, the murderer Gaethje. That's out the window. So Max Holloway's not an option. Okay, so I guess we're going to do the winner of Yair Rodriguez, Brian Ortega. Yair in Spain, that makes sense. Spanish speaking. We just saw Yair get absolutely destroyed by Volkanovski. Okay. Max Holloway was the choice, but they didn't plan it out. They fucked up. Max Holloway's your choice. That should be the next guy. But he's on UFC 300 fighting a fight that makes no sense for anybody. They panicked. They agreed to all these fights.
You know, my favorite part is when he throws up in his mouth for a second and he just rallies on because Bapa just goes. Ozempic reflux is a beast. And just casually saying Max is gonna get destroyed and brain damage. Brendan is such a jabroni. Literally no one cares about your takes on MMA. But to be honest, Max Holloway versus Justin Gaethje is common throughout the fan base. And this really isn't a good matchup for Max Holloway, and it isn't going to be pretty. It don't matter now because Papa just gave Justin Gaethje the kiss of death by saying he will win. So homeless cats, place your bets on Max Holloway. I'm just thinking Brendan is just furious to see his pal Bryan Callen and former collaborator Theo Von front row at UFC. I bet Papa's skin crawls whenever he sees Theo hanging out with Jared Leto and getting all the UFC card baddies. Even worse is we know Theo Von knows Jared Leto is his favorite, and the fact he hasn't invited Brendan to meet his idol has to kill him. This dolt really does not think long term. Max Holloway fighting for the BMF belt makes some sense because there was literally nothing left for Max at 145 before this past Saturday. And Volkanovski versus Max again was not something people were screaming for. So Dumbo can't see that UFC did what they could do at the time. Max Holloway versus Justin Gaethje is guaranteed action, and you have a type of belt, I guess, to have them fight for. This idiot acts like Topuria was gonna be champ even though he picked against him. Brendan is such a bandwagon fan, it's insane he competed. And how does Schaub even know Max Holloway and Gaethje didn't want to do this fight? Both fighters get a huge payday, and I'm sure there's perks to having the BMF belt, even though it's not real, and win or lose, it doesn't technically matter towards rankings or future title fights. So it's a win-win situation. And they're both fighters who like to fight, so let them fight. This is the perfect scenario for them. And Brendan, it's not Max Holloway. It's Max Holloway. I swear to God, Brendan straight up called him Max Hollywood once. You can't make this up, folks. You're talking about John Africa B or Bruce Spring. Okay, so in my previous video yesterday, I talked about how Brendan Schaub was jealous of Bryan Callen attending the live event of UFC 298 at the Honda Center in Anaheim, California. But in this video clip, we're going to see Brendan seething a little bit, trying to get some details out of Bryan Callen about that UFC pay-per-view event that he so wished he went to, making a slight dig at Rinks, calling him a casual. Let's go ahead and check this out.
We walked in about 7 o'clock, sat down for the first, we caught the final prelim fight.
I was going to ask you, I was going to test. I would say, when did you get to the arena? Casuals get there between 6:45 and 7:30.
Yeah, I got there about 6:30.
You just said before the...
Yeah, I got there exactly.
You got there 7.
6:26 actually.
You got there about 7.
No, I got there. I parked at 6:26, and then came in. But
Good seats?
Sitting. Well, I don't know. We were right behind Joe Rogan and Michael Bisping and John Anik. So I don't know if that's good.
It just depends. Can you see it great there?
That's a very good point.
Because listen, it's fun to sit cage side and Joseph Rogan's our buddy. You're behind him. Hate to spoil the thing here. The best seats are not there because you have the pillars. You have a lot of people in front of you. You usually want to be Grant if you're a celebrity stuff, but you want to be kind of in the first, like, not first row, but we're just above, so your eyesight.
Yeah, no, for us, it was great.
You're good?
Seeing him that close.
You're
And
smaller.
for my son too, it was so awesome.
I bet.
You know, and then I said hi to Dana. It was
Wow, he's such a hater. Why can't Brendan just be happy for Bryan Callen? Jesus. And why is he acting like we don't know Dana White hates him and doesn't want him there? And I swear to God, I can't stand when Brendan calls Joe Rogan Joseph. I hope Toe hates it too. It's so obnoxious. It's amazing how many unlikable traits this man acquires. Like it's a mission in life. And honestly, this is what I don't get when Bryan Callen constantly goes to bat for Brendan, saying how nice he is. Schaub turns around and shits on Bryan Callen every chance that he gets. And it's not even like a fun ball-busting way. It's pure jealousy that you're doing something outside of Brendan. I do find Bryan Callen pretty funny on a rare occasion. I'm talking about rare. But Brendan Schaub is intolerable. At this point, it's mind-boggling because you know everyone is telling Bryan Callen to get the F out, leave the podcast, and ditch Papa. Callen must be a masochist. It's as if Brendan can never be happy for his friends. Who am I talking about? Friends? Papa has no real friends. His only friends are Chin and Jay, Axe Jay. But I heard it both ways. Hey, Brendan, what time do people who are banned from the UFC get there at the live event? You redact. Oh, that's right. He's not banned. That's just his narrative. Schaub's not going to get VIP treatment and would have to buy a ticket like any of us. Pedestrians and mere civilians. Oh, excuse me, casuals. Bryan Callen looks so scared whenever he talks about his cage side experience with Brendan. But what I can't stand about Bryan Callen is because he's a true coward around redact. Whenever he's around Brendan, he walks on eggshells to not upset the overgrown mongoloid. Can you see it great there? You mean, can you see it great from the vantage point of the announcers who are doing play-by-play? Anything to shit on Bryan Callen. Casuals don't know nothing about sitting ringside. And seriously, when did being a casual fan of something become so bad? Especially when Brendan's the biggest casual. He has a show that revolves around the sport and still can't be bothered to learn the fighters' names or even watch the fights. Now in this last video clip, we're going to see Brendan Schaub burning all the bridges. His jealousy has led him here. His hate for the UFC and Dana White has led him to this very moment that we're going to watch right now.
There you go.
There's that. You got Mark Zuckerberg. They're like, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, Zuckerberg. And then you got Dana there worth $1 billion. You got Rogan there versus 500 million.
Yes.
You got Bryan there versus $2,000.
Yeah.
And then you got like all these billionaires, right?
Yes.
Like, and these celebrities, and they're just watching the most violent men in the world going, yes, yes.
Well, that's how it
And they're going to
feels.
jump on their private jets. It's just a weird vibe.
Brendan is so mad that he will never get invited to a UFC event. Schaub was on the Fight Companion and Joe Rogan specifically made an effort to not invite him, but rather the person sitting next to him in Bryan Callen. And all he had to do is put in the work and not be an absolute tool. Try to get funnier eventually, he gets back on. Too much work for old kratom munching cockpill biting schlob. It's just not in his nature. But who are we kidding? Bappa is the hardest working man in podcasting, you haters. It's a weird vibe. What, as opposed to running a podcast where most of the staff have been accused of sexual assault. But it wasn't a weird vibe for him when he told the fake story about walking out to the octagon for a fight and seeing Leonardo DiCaprio in the front row. Now all of a sudden Bryan Callen gets his invite and it's a weird vibe. And of course Bappa keeps dissing Callen. Standard Brendan behavior. Oh god, it's so fun watching him self-destruct. And look, Bryan Callen got his problems for sure, but he should have stiffly said F you when Brendan said he was worth $2,000. It's embarrassing, man, how spineless Callen is. God, I pray one day he breaks. And seriously, what is wrong with Brendan? Chael Sonnen, Michael Bisping, Cormier would never talk like this on their pods. Why would you say this out loud on your biggest platform? And I'm being really generous there. It's a weird vibe. Some would say the weirdest. And by the way, that is twice in 1 week that Brendan Schaub has mentioned Joe Rogan and his money on the podcast. Hey, where'd you get that net worth figure? Who, me and Toe? We talk every day. Yeah, I know. Dicey. Anyhow, let me know what y'all think in the comment section down below. But hey, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe and like button right now. And also push the notification bell as well. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. But I shall see all of you in the next video.
Like, but the Balenciaga one, Jesus Christ.